Very warm greetings in the blessed name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, is there something that you think of in your life, that from a very young age, that you desire so much, and it doesn't change in you? And as you grow older, you get very concerned that it is not happening. Or you get very concerned that it is not sufficiently achieved in your life. You want that to be so true in your life. To be part of something, for example, that you will do all you can while you have breath, while you have resources. You will do all that you can. You will plan. You will invest to make sure that even after you die, that thing will come true. Is there something like that in your life? I think many of us may have, but it usually pertains to very earthly, carnal, fleshly, temporal kind of objectives. Now, the title for today's message is a hope based on promise. Hope based on promise. We have read in our scripture reading. Now, here, God tells us about the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought out. So, Joseph, before he died, he made it very clear to his posterity. Remember, he brought his brothers, he brought his father into Egypt. That at that time, he was a great prince. He was a great minister, government minister in Pharaoh's court. But before he died, he made the children of Israel there with him in Egypt. He said, you must swear to me, you must make an oath that you will take my bones out of Israel when God visits you, when God takes you to the promised land. In other words, for Joseph, the promise of God that was made to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to his forefathers, to his father, was so sure, was so clear in his heart, that he did not say, now, if God takes you all to the promised land. No, he said, when. In fact, he knows it's going to be a future, a distant future. That is why he said, my bones. He did not say, my body. Now, the Egyptians, they are very good at embalming. They are really world famous for that, historically. But he knows that it's going to be a long time. Even their best embalming, I will still rot and bones will be left behind. Now, it was a distant thing to him. Distant, but yet extremely clear and sure, that promise of God. Now, in fact, you would see that Jacob was the same. Now, in fact, Jacob, in his closing years, he told Joseph, I bought burial plot for you in Canaan. That was how important it was to Jacob as well. Now he said, in Machpelah, Abraham buried Sarah there in the cave. Abraham himself bought the land. The people of Het said, well, you're a great man. Just take the land, whatever you want, we'll give it to you. Abraham refused. Abraham says, no, I must pay for the land. I must own the land. Now, Abraham knew as well that the land will one day belong to the children of Israel. But at that time, it was not yet. So to him, this is something that I'm going to own one day. But now, if it is not, I will buy it. He bought the land for burial of Sarah, then for himself, and then for Isaac as well, all buried there. And then for Isaac's wife. And then Jacob himself said, well, Joseph, make sure You need to swear to me. So even when Jacob was in Israel, he told Joseph, Joseph, you must swear to me. Now remember, it's a nice land that they got from Pharaoh. So Jacob and his children was living in a nice part of, the best part of Egypt. Very nice area. But yet he made Joseph swear, you will, when I die, you will take me back and bury me in Canaan with my forefathers. You must promise me that. Swear to me. In fact, after he died, Joseph had to go to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, please. Now, if I found favor in your sight, my father made me swear to bring him back, to bury him in Canaan with his ancestors. Can you please grant me permission? In fact, Pharaoh said, go. In fact, Pharaoh sent an entourage. It was a grand leaving, a grand march to bury Jacob there. Now, soon after that, that is when Joseph also said, please make sure that I get the same thing. My bones will be buried in Canaan. Now, their hope based on this promise was so clear, so crystal clear in their hearts and mind. Now, what must we learn about this? If you and I have so much revelation compared to them, now they only have some of these writings of the Old Testament. We have the complete 66 books that God intended to give to us, the complete Bible. Now, they have not seen Christ come. We have seen the prophecies of Christ fulfilled with such accuracy. We have seen the release of Israel from bondage so precisely. We studied that on Friday night, right? Down to the name of the king who will release Israel from bondage. We've seen all these precise promises of God fulfilled in history. What is our hope? How clear is our hope like compared to them back then, who had so much less than us? Now, this hope is not, well, I hope it happens. Well, I hope it will come true. No, when the Christian hope is not that. The Christian hope is a sure hope. Means I am looking forward to that day. That is what we mean by the Christian hope. No, I hope that it will happen. I might go to heaven. Now, if you're not a believer, you've been hearing the gospel many times. I don't know who you are. Do you have this sure hope that you know that if you were to die today? Now, people are dying suddenly because of COVID. God, I hope, has wakened you to the fact that you and I, although we are protected here, we can get it and we can die. Young people are dying, not just elderlies. Do you have this sure hope? Do not keep resisting, because God in His mercy is calling. He has brought you here, not by chance. That is His merciful reaching out to you. You see, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, this was so clear. What are we then needing to learn? Now, when it was so clear in their hearts, you saw that it influenced, impacted, and controlled their living. That is the key thing we need to understand. Why does God give us revelation? Why does God tell us about the future? For a simple reason, not to entertain our thoughts, not to tickle our imagination and curiosity. No, God shows us prophecies and gives us promises to tell us that it is so sure, I am God. Now, then you live your life in view of those promises. That is the reason why God gives us promises. And they understood that. You see, to them, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, to these people, being buried, where they are buried, who they are buried with, is very important to the Jews as well. That signifies where home is. To them, that is home. That is my people. That is where I am born into this world for, my purpose. I must be buried there with those people in that land where the purpose of God will be fulfilled. So in other words, for them, identification with the people of God is so crucial. And it's so real to them that prophecy will come true. Israel will become a nation. Israel will be the chosen witness of God. I want to be identified with the people and with their purpose. That is why he said, you must bury me there. I'm not going to be buried in some heathen land where pagan gods are there. That was very crucial to them. Understand when you read, all right, you have time, go back, read Genesis, the parts about Abraham buying land. Jacob asking to be buried. Jacob buying land for Joseph. Why so anxious about burial land? When the Heth people say, come on, Abraham, just take, monies, what is it between us? I'm rich, you're rich. Nothing. And they said this, just take the land and be buried with our people. He said, be buried with our people. That is what the Heth people said, just be buried with our people. Now that is what Abraham did not want. I'm not going to be buried with any people. Because who I am buried with, that people, are they the people of God that are called by God, chosen by God to do His purpose? Now that is the people that I will be buried with. So he said, no. They kept persuading him. He insisted and said, okay, no, enough already. He didn't want to embarrass the head of the people there. They had their ulterior motives, of course. But he had to make sure there will be no dispute later on. That for the future generation, no one can say, actually this land, we kind of like just gave it to him. It did not belong to him. We were just, on loan to him. We want it back. He did not want this kind of things. To him, the land will be God's land, and I want to make sure there is no dispute. If I can put a down payment now to make sure there will be no dispute, I will put it, because it will be my people's land. So when he said, be buried with my people, alarm bells went out. I said, no way. Now, why is this so important? Or rather, now with this importance to them, to these people, that's why you read these people, the burial is crucial, where they are buried, who they are buried with, it's crucial to them because of the identification with God's people and His purpose. Now that, when you read about whenever burial is brought up, the identification is brought up, they suddenly get very, very excited. They suddenly get very, very adamant. It impacted them. Now I began with asking you, is there something in your life? Are there things in your life? Or does this characterize your life? Something is so important that I will even make my children swear. You make sure that after I die, you do this for me. Make sure. Is there? Now let us understand that that is what it means. Then let us ask ourselves, now if I have known all these promises and I have known about Christ's return, in fact, you know that there are far more prophecies about Christ's second return than Christ's first return. And if there are lesser prophecies about Christ's first return, and they were so precisely, and every single one of them were fulfilled precisely, none missed out, then you must know there are many more wonderful promises about the future that it has to be so clear to us. Only then it will now begin to change your life today. Impact your life today. Then you ask, a person who is so possessed by this identification with God's people, God's purpose, is so possessed by that. Now, what does it look like in their life? Then I examine myself against their life. Am I like that? If I'm not, now I need to do something about it. So let's look at them. All right? What is their life like? What characterizes a people that has such clear hope based on promise of God? Now I try to use the acronym, I try to use the word STAR, S-T-A-R, to help you remember, all right? To help you remember. Now remember Joseph, he had a dream, correct? He dreamt, and then there was the moon, there were 11 stars. I couldn't fit it into the moon, all right? So I'm just helping you to remember, all right? So STAR, S-T-A-R. Because as I meditated upon it, then, yeah, the acronyms fell in place this way. Now, the star. Now, people who have this kind of very strong and clear hope based on God's promise, now they see things, or rather they see themselves as sojourners. They see themselves as sojourners. Now, if you turn with me to Hebrews chapter 11, because Hebrews chapter 11 explains to us what is in their heart. All right, Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. Now, let me read verse 13 to 16 to you. God talked about the people, the ancestors, and Abraham and Sarah, for example, included in there, and Joseph later. Now, these all, Hebrews 11, verse 13, now, these all died in faith. Now, that is the point. They died, but they did not die without hope and do not know what's going to happen. They died in faith. Died in faith means their life, even when they're living, was by faith. Even in death was by faith. They died in faith. It's not about their salvation. Huh? It's about they lived their life in faith and they died in faith. We studied in the Seniors Fellowship. Don't say, as long as I have faith when I'm living, when I'm dying, I don't need to obey God. They lived and died in faith. Now it says, not having received the promises, no, they did not see it. We've seen so many promises. Now, but having seen them afar off, you see, they see very far. These people, the reason why, when their hope is in the promise, yet from a very long time ahead, their lives are already influenced and impacted by it. They see very far. We see very shortly. We are very short-sighted people. We are only interested in the now, the temporal. The young people, the teens. I just want to play. I just want to have fun. No, but these people, they saw very serious things about the future. Now, then next, they were persuaded of them. Now, we see a lot of things, but we're not persuaded. In other words, these things are not real to us. It's a lot of head knowledge. Persuaded means their heart was really moved by it. It was a hope, that kind of hope. A hope that moved their heart, moved their life. Is that your Christian life when you understand that Christ is coming? Embrace them. Embrace them. They did not just say, well, we know and all that. No, they did something about it. Just like Jacob. Make sure I spend the money to buy land for myself, for my children. Right? We read in Joshua, right? He was buried in the land where it says, Jacob bought a parcel of land from the sons of Hamor for 100 pieces of silver. You see, they embraced it. They did something. It influenced them so long ahead, you know. Now, then next, he says, and confess. Confess. It came out of their life. What it really changed in them. They confessed. They were strangers and pilgrims on earth. You see, they saw themselves as strangers. They saw themselves as sojourners on earth. Now, if you look further down in verse 15, verse 14, for they say such things. Now, they that say such things, you and I say, right? We say, well, Christ is coming. I live for the future. I live for heaven. They say such things now, but they declare plainly that they seek a country. They seek a country. You see, when they wanted to be buried there, what they're saying is, I'm seeking the promised land that will come in time. Now, look further. It says, and truly, if they were mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have opportunity to have returned. He's saying, no, if their minds were about the country from which they came out, if they cared about where their origin was from, all right? Some of us say, I'm from Malaysia, I'm from Brunei, I'm from Singapore, wherever. Now, he said, if they were concerned about, well, they came from across that side of the flood, then they would have gone back. Well, I'm going to die. I want to be buried with my heathen pagan people. But no, not. They did not want to go back there. Now, next one, verse 15. But now they desire a better country. Now, that's the question. They saw the future life as a better country, a better life. The spiritual things concern them more than the physical. They saw beyond all that. But now they desire a better country. That is what? Heavenly, spiritual, heavenly. And what? Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God. Now, if you think about all this, now actually in chapter 11, verse 22, it says, by faith, again, by faith, they saw. When he died, made mention of departing of the children of Israel. Made mention means, I know you're going to depart, and gave commandment concerning his bones. You see, God described these people as people that really see themselves as sojourners on earth. Do you and I see that? So for them, please don't mistake, they want to be buried there not because, if I'm buried in Israel, then I'm going to heaven, I'm saved. No, God revealed their heart. Now, when they say, we seek that country, we want to be there, even after we die long time, I want my bones to be there, is because of a heavenly hope. It was a heavenly hope. So don't say, like that, then I want to be buried in Israel as well. After I died, now I learned I should be buried. Now after that, I also want to give instruction to my family, I want to be buried in Israel. That was not the point. All right? They were a national witness. They are the people that God will call them to. Today is the church witness. Now, so these people never saw anything in this life worth living for. All right? Everything was very temporal. We studied sojourners in our 1 Peter series. It has to do with time. Their time here is temporal. So you say, if I am a person who genuinely, my hope is based on that promise, that future promise, that spiritual promise, that is me, then you have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, do we take this world as our home? Very comfortable here. In fact, not so keen that Christ come back. Maybe now with COVID-19 you hope. No. Perth is not in lockdown, so you hope not yet. All right? Now, think of Joseph. Turn back to Joshua. Now, and the bones of Joseph with the children of Israel brought up of Egypt, buried they in Shechem. Remember, Joseph, make sure they took an oath to bury him there, right? Think about who he is in Egypt. Now, he was very, very powerful, very, very high ranking. He controlled a lot of things in Egypt. Pretty much, Pharaoh said, you decide. I trust you so much, you decide. All right? He was in that kind of power and position at that time, a nation that is rich, powerful, great, highly respected in the world, one of the superpowers. So he was there at that time, in that position. But yet, to him, this was never a place that had any grip on me. I am just a sojourner. I want to be back in that land. I want to be there in that land. One day when the promise is fulfilled, that is my home, not Egypt. Now you have to understand, Joseph left Egypt as a teenager. He was sold as a slave into Egypt as a teenager. The Bible tells us that Joseph died at 110 years old, same as Joshua. 110 years old. So you do your math. 90 over years old, right? 90 over years in this land of Egypt. But his root never sank there. That was how strong he made the people swear, you make sure that I'm not here. Now, do you know, to be buried, for Joseph to be buried in Egypt, these people, they revere these people in position. He would have been in the annals of history, I said, I am not interested to be part of their history. I'm only interested to be part of God's purpose, God's history. Make sure that I'm there. My bones are there. Now, are we like that? What holds on to you? That your soul, that if you leave it, you feel, such a heartache. I worked so hard in this job, in this company, in this world. I've achieved all this. I don't want to leave. If God calls you to serve Him one day, I don't want to leave. Or God calls you home one day, I don't want to die yet. You see, to Him, it's very different. Does that characterize your life? If hope is so genuine for you, that is the natural response. These things not only did not grip him, it never changed his mind at all. All these years. You remember he had the dreams of prophecy. He too knew. And he heard from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He knew of the promised land, that promise. He knew all this. Now, but all the riches and all the position and power that were given to him never changed his heart. Now, young people, you say, well, I know I'm safe, I'm going to heaven, Jesus is very important, I want to live for Jesus. I want to be a witness for Him. Then you must be aware of this. As you grow, or even working person, as you work, as you climb the corporate ladder, not by evil means, as God gives you more in life, as you age, beware, will it change your heart? Sojourners' heart do not change. Their heart are there. They may be physically here, but their heart are there. You know, those of you from Singapore, you know these words. Even the countries, even unbelieving countries, they understand the importance of that. They know home is where your heart is. If that promise is so clear that it's home, that is where your heart is. If you're so clear that spiritual matters are the most important, that is where your heart will be. Now I say, this is my country, this is my flag. This is my future, this is my life. This is my family, these are my friends. We are Singaporeans. Singapore, our homeland. It is here that we belong. You see, they write national songs like that. My flag, my future, my family, my friends. This is my homeland. This is where I belong, because the government do not want an exodus of people. They want people to leave their heart here. Even they go, they want to come back. We want you to feel like sojourners elsewhere. We want Singapore to be a homeland. See, nations understand this concept because they know that is what captures the heart. If you say this promise, if you say, well, I will be with Christ one day, the heavenly things, the identification with Christ and His people. Now that is the promise, the wonderful promise. I want to live for that. Then that will be your heart, like them. You know, there's one thing that I always find very amusing. I'm sure those of you who take aeroplane flights, you will know. Now, when the plane is taking off, they have to keep, put on your seatbelt, put on your seatbelt, put on your seatbelt. Sir, please put on your seatbelt, right? Then they announce, please put on your seatbelt. But when it lands, it's completely opposite, right? When it lands, the moment it lands, already you hear click, 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 right? Everybody removing their seatbelt. And they say, please keep your seatbelt on. They can't wait to remove their seatbelt. And the moment, tung, even before that sound means remove seatbelt, you not only hear the clicking, everyone is jumping up and grabbing their bags, right? That is how it is. Why is it like that? Why do you think it's like that? When you sit there, I don't want to go down, I don't want to go down. Maybe some children are like that, I don't know. I don't want to go down. Because you know that aeroplane journey is just a journey. The airplane is not your home. That is not where you're supposed to spend the rest of your life. The moment it lands, you can't wait to get off because I'm home. I'm home. I'm landed. I can't wait to touch down and get down and be home. You behave like that because home is so clear in your mind. When we are like that, when our heavenly home, our spiritual walk, the spiritual values, the spiritual things are like that, that is how you will be. The moment office work is over, I'm gone. Why? Now I'm not asking you to be lazy. I'm gone. Why? Because it's prayer meeting tonight. I'm so excited. Because it's Bible study. Because it's fellowship. I'm so excited. I can't wait. That was where my heart has been the whole day. You see, when spiritual things are, and the promise of God in spiritual things are there, it promises growth. It promises this walk with Him, this fellowship with Him. When they're so real to you, that is how you react. Immediately when school is done, you want to go home. Yeah, I'm going home. Not to play computer games, because if that is what you see as the promise at home, then that's what you look for. No, I'm going home because Mommy is going to teach me God's Word. Because we are going to have family worship tonight. You see, you do not drag your feet, you're not unwilling. Yeah, there are some people I see as well on the plane. They want to watch the movie. They want to finish the movie. They don't finish, well, sometimes, I don't know, food or whatever. They don't want it to land yet, right? Because it's something that you want. We do not want the plane to land. We do not want our life to end because of these things. We see these short-sighted things, but they saw afar off. They saw the promise of God. Now, seniors, what do you feel when you leave this, if you are going to leave this world? Is it a feeling of sadness? What do you feel that you're leaving most dear to you? This is most dear to me. I really don't want to leave it. What is it? Joseph, Jacob. Jacob, at the time, like we said, they are living in a good part of Egypt, given the best land in Egypt, chosen for them. That's how kind, how thankful Pharaoh was to Joseph. Jacob said, please, make sure I'm buried there. Joseph was not interested in how they will enshrine him. Now, he didn't want to stay 1 minute longer. They want to be part of that promise when it comes true. Now, when we look at all this, then we look and ask ourselves, now as sojourners, what or to what is your loyalty? To what is your loyalty? You see, sojourners, they see the heavenly kingdom. Their loyalty is always to the King, to Jesus Christ. What is your loyalty? Joseph did not say, well, you know, Pharaoh has been so kind to me. Pharaoh has been so nice to me. Jacob did not say, wow, so kind, you know, we are beggars, we are so unimportant, but Pharaoh treats us this way. You know, actually, maybe we should have more thankfulness and don't talk about, I don't want to be buried with your people. I want to be buried there. Abraham was hosted very kindly by the people of Heth. When they say, well, we are hosting you, just use the land. But all of them did not feel like, they're so nice to us. Just be buried with their people. No, the identification was so important to them. They did not feel that, just be buried here. You know, to say, I don't want to be buried with your people, take me out. This would be very embarrassing for my son, Joseph. Or Jacob, or Joseph would feel, you know, not very nice of me. For all these years, 90 years in Egypt, and my later years so well treated. Now, I'm not saying that being loyal and being grateful is wrong, but it must not supersede your desire to be identified with the people of God and with the work of God. It must be that. I'm not asking you to be ungrateful and disloyal people, but you must know where your heart ought to be as sojourners, with your King, with His purpose. Now we move quickly, all right, to the next one. The T. Now, if the hope of a promise is very real to you, it will be shown in what you treasure. It will be shown in what you treasure. Now, they treasured their spiritual identity above everything else. That's why I said, with that people, with that purpose, that God said, the promised land was for a purpose. That is why the heart is set there. Now, God says, set your affection on things above, not on things on earth. Because Christ says also, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, right? What do you treasure? Now think of Joseph again. Think of Joseph again. He had riches, he had power, he had position, he had all the affluence that you can desire at his fingertips, right? But he never treasured any of it. The only treasure, now when you say treasure, it means this, right? Means even while you're living is very important to you, and even when you die, you want to protect it, correct? You want to protect that. That's why it's a treasure to you. In life or in death, that is very important to you. Now, the divine promises of God that was given, Joseph never took his eyes off those things because his heart was set on things above. Now, we have to ask ourselves this. What do we treasure on this earth? What do we spend most of our time willingly for on earth? That will be your treasure, right? That will be your treasure. And things that you find that it's a chore, it's troublesome, and you find that actually I don't like, I'm doing it just because I'm forced to. You can't say that that's your treasure, correct? Then I can't say that, well, I'm truly a sojourner. I'm truly someone who says the future hope is so strong that my treasures are different. Now to Joshua, Egypt will be forgotten. Egypt, whatever Egypt achieves, will turn into dust. Right? Everything that they did at the time, what are they now? Dust. Another thing got built over it. He doesn't want to set his heart on those treasures. They are temporal. He understood that. You see, treasure for the Christian must be seen in this light. What is its longer term eternal value? Because something, young people or families or singles, you see this thing, you treasure it, very often it's because it's satisfied and it fits something very temporal, that's all. That's all. But to Joseph, Egypt will be forgotten. All the things he achieved will be forgotten. But the purpose and the people of God, their purpose will last forever. Israel will last forever. You know that. Israel will be restored one day. Jerusalem will be the capital city of the world. Revelation tells us that. See, to them, that is what will last. That is what I want to be part of. What do you want to be part of will decide your treasure. Your pursuit of things that go beyond what is necessary. Now, does it contribute to your eternal walk, your eternal life? Not as in salvation by works, but what did it mean to you in eternity? That you were part of God's work, you were part of God's people, and what you did for Christ last. Now, when the other thing about treasure is this. Now, to be buried there, it always had to do with my people. I must be buried with my people. Now, it's the identification with God's people. They treasured being identified with God's people. Are you someone who is like that? If you say, well, the future hope, the future kingdom where I will be part of, and Christians will be my brethren, and this will be my family, that will be my home. Now, if that is true, genuine in you, your hope is on that promise is very, very genuine, you will really treasure the people of God. Young people, you often are not willing to give up your friendships because you treasure earth. You treasure things of the earth. Their friendship mean a lot to you, even though they draw you away from God. But you treasure that. But when you treasure heavenly things, being with the people of God is what you want. These people say, The promise has not come yet. Abraham knew the promise is going to be very, very far down. The people have to go through bondage first. Abraham knew all that. He wrote about it. He spoke about it in Genesis. But yet he says, I want to buy the land now. I want to be buried there because God's people will be here one day. Joseph the same, right? It's going to be very long later. The calculation generally is about 200 years later. He also knows it's going to be long. I will be turned into bones. But he said, to be identified with God's people is so important for me. Now today, for them, it's Israel, the land, and the people. For us today, it's not Israel, it's the church. Do you treasure identification with the people of God? Do you treasure God's church? That is what it means. They treasure Israel because of what Israel stands for, the witness for God on earth. Do you treasure church? Do you treasure the people of church? They want to be buried with them. Do you care? You know, even in the world, they understand that this is important. You go to cemeteries, the plots of burial, the Christian area. Now, even for Christian, this is Christian, and then this is Roman Catholics. Then you have Muslims, then you have other. They understand the bearing with their people and identification with their people. Even the world understand and they respect that as cemeteries. Now, in life or in death, is that how you feel? Because if the promise is real, you will really, really appreciate and love church and God's people. They love Israel. They love Israel because of the witness, what they stand for. They love the people, their people. Do we? Now, sometimes I begin to wonder, when there is shutdown, how do you feel? Yay, shut down. No need to go to church. Can live stream at home. Right? Do you treasure? Or we can't have it. Or do you say, Pastor, you promise, you swear to me, Pastor, the moment we can come back, you swear to me that you will let us come back. You swear to me that even we all can come back, you swear to me we'll roster and then I have a chance to come back. Is it that your heart, that being here with the people of God, worshiping Him, witness for Him, serving Him, so important to you? That is them. Because the hope, the eternal thing, the eternal values, God's purpose, God's spiritual thing was so important to them. Or are you going to say, wow, so good, the eastern states, so good. They don't have to go to church. Is that in your heart? So good. Now, when we are like that, then we know, oh no, I may say that I really believe I'm going to heaven. I'm looking forward to heaven. I'm looking for, and I love these spiritual things. But yet, that is our response. That we see church as a pain, as a troublesome thing for myself, for my family, for my children. It is just something I need to have. They did not feel that way. They forced them to swear that you will make me part of God's people and His purpose. All right? So, now the other thing about church is this. How much do you and I treasure church? If the promise is real, we treasure it. We treasure His people and the purpose of the church. Do you care if church dies? Do you care? Now, sometimes I like to hear the older generation in BPCWA talk. They really treasure church. They really treasure BPCWA. They pour their tears in prayer for it. They worry about the future generation. That is their heart. They are in a generation where they know church is very, very precious. They treasure it. They worry for it. I'm very touched. When we went through difficulties, they share how they meet and they cry to God and pray for the church. They love the church. They worry, will the church be moving forward? Some will say, I've already reserved in my will for the church. That is what they treasure about God's work. Not the church, but God's work on earth. But the newer generation, they are taught very often to say, church is not important. You can worship anywhere. You can worship how you like. Now to the point where even church membership is not important. There's someone who joined our church some time back, came to worship. And this is common everywhere, right? Not just our church. He said, where does the Bible teach that we need to be members? The whole concept in the Bible, even the burial, is always about belonging to a covenantal people. For them, is Israel there. For us, is church has replaced temporarily Israel. The belonging to a covenantal people is always in scriptures. In the New Testament, God added to the church. It is always there. To belong is very strong. Now, if Satan can make you feel no need to belong, then there is no commitment. There's no commitment, the church will die. That is the deception. You must understand that. Do you love the church? If the hope is real, and then the church does the work of God on earth to bring more into the kingdom, to make people ready for that future hope, then I love the church. People who are like that do not have commitment. That is the thing. They were very committed to their people, to their purpose. They said, bury me there. I want to be identified with Israel and their purpose, not with Egypt, no matter how famous and rich they are now. Now, people like that is typical in their life. For example, this person said, no, this is about a life of commitment. God always says, the covenantal people, the commitment to one another. That's what infant baptism is about. That's what baptism is also about. But it changes you. So people like that, they'll live divorced life. Why? No commitment. I'm not happy. Well, a little problem. Divorce you. Divorce. Because there's no need for commitment. Or, after divorce, remarry, not happy again. Separation. It's that kind of life. Because you do not love. You do not love what marriage stands for. That is the problem. Now ask ourselves, in your heart, do you love the church? Or is the smallest thing that happened in your life, and then you say, oh, forget it, I'm leaving church? A little problem. Don't like some things? I'm leaving church. I'm not serving God. You do not love church. You do not love God's people. Because if it's your family, you do not say, well, we have some disagreement, we have some misunderstanding. I'm walking out of home. No, because you love. You love the people. You identify with yourself with that home, right? You don't. So, what is the application for us today? Is your life like that? Or is church a troublesome appendage in your life? Then no matter what you say, I look forward to the spiritual kingdom, part of God's kingdom and all that, then you do not understand yet. From the life of these people, that is what it meant to them. All right, so now, then next one, the A. This is the acid test, right? A is not acid test, all right? Maybe it can be. But your actions will reflect your spiritual talk. Your actions will reflect your spiritual talk. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if the promise of the kingdom to come, and it is worth living for that kingdom, many of us say, it will be worth it all when we see Jesus. Life's trials will seem so small when we see Christ, right? We sing and we say, oh yeah, no, all this trouble. Now, if that is real in your life and in my life, then our actions will speak very loudly. Our choices, in other words. Now, what do I mean by that? You see, for Joseph and Jacob, their actions spoke very loudly. They were not just, we are God's people, Jehovah is our God, we belong to this. They made people swear that they will be brought there, identified with that people and that purpose. They made people swear. When they are living, they invested, they used money to buy things to prepare for that. Their actions really reflected that being identified with God's people and God's purpose was very, very real. They spare no effort, they spare no cost. Like Abraham, they spare no relationship even. Now, even if he makes Joseph unhappy, Joseph may say, well, hey, Dad, come on. I brought you in here. You all were beggars. Pharaoh is so nice to let you all stay here, even give us the best plot of land. Then you want me, in my position, you want me to go and bring you back, swear to bring you back, bury you there. You know how embarrassing it will be, how troublesome it will be for me. I have to leave, and then I have to leave my work, incur all that trouble. Who's going to run things? And then, I have to go home with you and bury you there. Jacob did not care about those things. That was how important it was. Swear to me. Swear to me. Of course, Joseph wasn't thinking like that, all right? I'm just, for example, but we think like that. Now, recently I covered about burial, right? Burial. Very often, the elderlies, they don't like to obey God in burial. I hope now you understand why. If you're not sure, go and Google our website. Our messages are loaded there. Why God says it's burial, not cremation. Now, many of them feel it's very troublesome for my children. Sometimes even at deathbed, I try to convince them, show them from scriptures. They may be convinced and they may see, but they will always say, it's a lot of trouble for my children. I don't want to trouble them. Jacob did not care. This was so important to him. You make sure I'm identified according to God's way with God's people. Burial is always an identification with God's people. The heathens, most of them cremate. Understand that. So, do you feel bad? How important is it to you? Many of you will say, now, children, make sure after I die, you promise me not to sell this house. We are willing to make them do that. Many parents do that. Because I got married here, Dad and I lived here, all the memories, I want you all to keep this legacy and don't sell this house. You're willing to put your children through that. But when it comes to heavenly things, no, you feel bad. You should not. You should not. Now, the actions must speak louder than words. Give you some example. Now, this is where we need to be very honest with ourselves. We say, no, the future kingdom is what is worth living for. Now, then we say, well, I wish, or I want, right? We say, our words say, no, I want my child to love God. I want my family to be useful for God. I want my life to count for God, right? I want to have no regrets when I meet God. Well, we say many things about the future, many things about the future of our children and God's work. We say it. But now the actions is the acid test. Do we try to escape church at the smallest inconvenience? Now, I'm not saying that there are no real problems that arise, but you're always, the natural thing in you and I is to find excuse. Oh, you see, I should not go to church. I can't go. I can't go to fellowship. I can't go to serve. I can't go to worship. I can't. But yet we keep saying, oh, I want my life to count. I want my children to love God. You keep saying that, but then the way you bring up your child doesn't reflect it at all. You say that I want to have no regrets, but there's no change in how you live as an elderly when your meeting Christ is imminent. You see, the thing is this. For them, they say and they do everything in their power to ensure that it happens. Their action reflects their heart, their hope. Their action reflects their hope. So let us examine ourselves, right? Let us examine ourselves. Are we like them? Now then the last one, the R. All right, the R. Now this is about the resurrection hope. The resurrection hope. Now what do I mean by that. Now know this, understand this, that burial is their belief in the afterlife and the resurrection one day, the bodily resurrection one day. To them, this is clear. That is why in the New Testament, Paul describes it further and more clearly. He says, sown in corruption, and raised in incorruption. Sown is burial. When you say, I sow seeds, I sow seeds. What are you talking about? I burn the seeds and make it into dust and ashes and throw it down. No, I sow seeds means the whole seed is intact. You sow it into the ground. So when God says sow in corruption means our body, the sinful body, we bury it and it will corrupt. This is our corrupted sinful body. It will corrupt. But it will be raised in incorruption. So burial is God's way to tell the world, the witness, that I am the God of resurrection. Jesus Christ was resurrected bodily. So I won't say too much about burial because we did that in great detail. If you still wonder, please go and view the videos. That's why God says they died in faith. At the end of the day, it's still obedience of God right to the end. That is God's chosen means of identification with God's people. The resurrection hope. Now, but what about it? What about it? If the resurrection hope is very real to us, now our lives will really be lived according to it. You see, like for example, and we will actually impact and influence others. That is the thing. Now, if the hope based on the promise, and you say the promise is real, and you really genuinely believe in that hope, that resurrection and that future life, then you will live for that future life. Your life will be like that future life. That is what it is. Is it there for our lives? If you believe that that is the better life, that is the better life, that is the promise, then why? Why do you and I live like this is the better life? We invest in, we put our energies in for ourselves and for our loved ones and for our children to make a better life here. Those things are priorities for a better life here. So we can't say that the resurrection hope is so real, but yet we think this is the better life. Egypt can embalm me. Right, Joseph? Egypt can embalm me, and they're very good at it. Egypt bury their royalties, the important people, with lots of treasures. That's why people go treasure hunting, right? Lots of treasure. They can bury me with all those things. This is useless life. Useless life. I will buy land first. I will prepare for myself to be part of that. That is how the resurrection hope affected them. Now then the last one is, or before the last one, now with respect to resurrection hope, do you live and invest in that life to come? That's the question. Do you and I live and invest for that life to come? Your time, your resources, your energies, your focus, what is it invested in? Jacob and Joseph, Abraham and Jacob invested in their burial land. I'm not asking you that is what it means, but the identification with God's purpose and God's people. Now, then the last one is this. You see, because it's so real to them, their actions actually stirs other people. What do I mean by that? When you read about it, it's interesting. Abraham made sure that his wife, made sure that he will be buried there with his wife. Now, as a result, the next in line, Isaac also understood it. So, this is very important. The example that the promised land is so real, that example that they will make sure that they buy them and be buried there first, affected Isaac's thinking also. That act to Isaac, now it passed on to me. This is important. God's people, God's purpose, the land, very important. He did that as well for himself and his wife. Right? Jacob also picked it up. It's very important. I will buy for my own children to make sure it happens. I will buy for Joseph ahead of time. And I will make Joseph promise me. Then just before he died in Israel, reminded Joseph to do it. Then it became very clear in Joseph's heart also. Very soon after that, he made the people swear. You see how when the hope of a promise is so real to you, your actions begin to pass on to the next generation. What are you passing on? We studied about legacy last week. What are you passing on? Now, if amassing and building a life on earth, they will watch. And they say, yes, after daddy dies, after mommy dies, that is what I will also pursue and build on earth. But no, to them, this is so important, you know. Then they will also follow suit. When Joseph brought the grandchildren and the other tribes before him when he was in Egypt, he made the children of Israel swear that. You know how many people got impacted? Joseph is so rich. Joseph is so powerful. Joseph is so famous. Joseph has this place in Egypt. He spent all his life here. But yet, in his heart, the people of God, the purpose of God, that's the only thing he cares to be identified with. That must also change me. Are our lives truly one that reflects this? My last statement is this. When the New Jerusalem, we sing about the New Jerusalem, we talk about the New Jerusalem, we want to study about the New Jerusalem, the coming kingdom. But if that is very, very real to you and I, our lives will be characterized by this S, T, A, and R. Set our affections on things above. When we sing about the New Jerusalem, let it be real. Really something that we look forward to. Let us rise to sing the closing hymn. Let us rise to sing the closing hymn 538. 538.